January 13th, 2024. Downtown Minneapolis. Temperatures hovered just below 20 degrees, but inside the Walker Art Center, the atmosphere was warm, bright, and carefully curated. The Urban League's annual Winter Gala was in full swing, an invitation-only fundraiser drawing city officials, philanthropists, and a small but powerful circle of black business elites. Marcus Washington arrived just before 7 p.m. sharp navy tuxedo, Italian leather shoes. One of the most recognizable names in the Minnesota construction scene, Marcus had spent over 2 decades building an empire from concrete, steel, and grit. His latest project, an affordable housing complex in North Minneapolis, had earned him local press and a new wave of respect. But tonight, his focus wasn't on business. Across the ballroom, she stood in a fitted emerald dress, a glass of champagne in one hand, a soft laugh tucked behind her other. Her name, at least that night, was Diamond. She was introduced as the creative partner of a rising tech investor, Damian Carter, who mingled easily among the guests, shaking hands and nodding with quiet confidence. Marcus noticed her almost immediately, not just for her beauty, but the way she looked at him. Direct, curious, unafraid. They spoke for 11 minutes. Witnesses later remembered how she leaned in slightly as he talked, laughed when he stumbled over a story, touched his arm once, lightly. He left the gala without dessert, giving his driver new instructions and a rare smile. Later that night, long after the music had stopped and the event space had cleared, Zara Johnson sat alone in a hotel room across town. A laptop open. Public records page pulled up. Search terms entered. Marcus Washington net worth. Washington Bill Group assets. Minneapolis real estate holdings. In less than an hour, she had pieced together a profile more detailed than any dating app could offer. Divorced. 2 adult daughters. CEO. Estimated assets. Over $12 million. Known to be generous. Recently featured in Minnesota Business Weekly. Social media presence minimal. Password recovery email linked to an outdated Yahoo account. What Marcus saw as a chance encounter, Zara viewed as a blueprint. And Damian? He had already installed 3 tracking apps on the burner phone tucked into his coat pocket. Over the next several days, Marcus and Zara exchanged more than 60 text messages. By the end of the month, they had gone on 4 dates, each more lavish than the last. A private dinner at Demi. Courtside Timberwolves tickets. A one-night trip to Chicago just for jazz. Zara played the role well. Curious but humble, creative but low-key. Never too eager. Marcus, meanwhile, felt seen. Not for his business, not for his past, but for the man he still wanted to be. What neither of them mentioned was their digital history. What Marcus didn't know, what no one knew, was that Zara's Instagram account had already featured a soft glimpse of him. His hand, resting on the sleeve of her coat, blurred in the corner of a selfie. It was posted under the caption, "Finally attracting the energy I deserve." It received over 28,000 likes in 24 hours. By mid-February, Marcus had already started calling her his piece. But the digital fingerprints told another story, one that was just beginning to take shape. And once it started, it would not stop quietly. Before we get deeper into the story, if you enjoy real-life psychological thrillers with twists you won't see coming, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you stories like this, true, layered, and unforgettable. And if you're into it as the story unfolds, go ahead and hit the like button down the line. It lets us know you're with us. By the second week of February, Marcus had cleared a drawer in his downtown condo. 3 silk scarves, a vintage film camera, and a small journal now lived there, none of them his. Zara said she worked in artistic photography, focusing on light and movement. She kept her explanations vague, but charming. Showed him a few curated prints from a studio in Uptown, all in black and white. When Marcus asked why she didn't post more online, she said she valued privacy. Said her art wasn't for the algorithm. He liked that answer. It made her feel rare. Marcus was spending more. Quietly, at first, a new iPad, a lens she admired in passing. Then louder. A trip to Tulum, chartered to a concierge he'd only used once before. A Cartier bracelet delivered to her door the morning after their first fight, though neither could later remember what the fight had been about. Charges began appearing on his Amex that his accountant flagged, but didn't question. Zara never asked directly. She only smiled when she received. To Marcus, it felt like giving. To Zara, it was proof of concept. In early March, Marcus introduced her to his daughters, Keisha and Lauren, over brunch at Nicollet Island Inn. The meal lasted less than 45 minutes. Keisha, the eldest, said later that something felt off. Zara didn't answer direct questions. She claimed to be from out west, but never said where. Said she was a twin, but corrected herself 2 minutes later. When Lauren asked about her photography, Zara redirected the conversation to the food. 2 days later, Keisha sent a short email to a law firm she had worked with once before. The subject line read, "Background check request, time sensitive." Within a week, she was introduced to someone who could help. A former investigator with experience in corporate fraud and romantic scams. Meanwhile, Marcus and Zara were exchanging passwords. It started with a Netflix login, then his personal calendar. She began using his phone to send herself reminders, then photos. A week later, she was checking his emails just to help him manage stress. Marcus didn't push back. He liked that she wanted to be involved. By March 18th, Zara had saved his banking app to her device under the folder labeled Utilities. She now had access to his business schedule, contact list, and personal notes, many of which included voice memos about upcoming deals and pending property transfers. The private investigator's early findings were limited. No criminal record, no lawsuits, a few expired domains linked to photo blogs, an old Arizona address, a deleted Instagram handle that had been tied to sponsored content 4 years earlier. Nothing conclusive, but something stood out. One of the IP addresses connected to Zara's old blog account had also been used to register a social media account under the name Nina Lane. That account, now inactive, had followed a dozen wealthy men in the Minneapolis area, and only them. Keisha received that detail in an encrypted file on March 24th. That same evening, Zara made a casual remark over dinner about a deal Marcus hadn't mentioned, a land acquisition scheduled for the summer. One that hadn't been finalized and wasn't supposed to be public. Marcus paused but said nothing. 3 days later, Zara texted him, "Can you resend that login? I think I got locked out." He replied, "Which one?" But she never answered. At the end of March, the investigator called Keisha directly. "There's more," he said, "but we'll need to go back further than 2024. On March 15th, Marcus proposed. The setting was private. His garden, candles, the skyline behind him. Zara said yes before he finished the sentence. She wept, laughed, pulled him into a kiss. The next morning, she created a shared wedding folder on Google Drive. Color palettes, venues, dress ideas. She already had 3 tentative dates saved for cake tastings. A month earlier, they were strangers. Now, she was designing monograms. Marcus didn't question the speed. He told friends she made him feel seen. That after his divorce, he thought this kind of love wasn't possible. He started referring to her as Z, like she was the final piece. Keisha was less convinced. On the outside, she played along, smiled during brunches, sent congratulations, but the tone had shifted. The investigator had gone quiet for nearly 2 weeks, until March 26th. He sent Keisha a 5-minute audio message at 2:17 a.m. His voice was calm but urgent. "You'll want to sit down," he said. Then he laid it out. Zara was running a subscription content business under the name Blair Icon. Multiple aliases, high-quality footage, 6-figure monthly payouts. The content was hosted across encrypted platforms. The business was registered offshore. The first video dated back to 2019. The most recent upload was posted 3 days before Marcus proposed. There were hundreds of subscribers, some of them well-known. The brand was discreet but unmistakable, and according to metadata tied to financial logs, the account had logged in from Marcus's home Wi-Fi at least 6 times. Keisha listened to the message twice, then again. She waited 2 days. Then, she confronted her father. It happened in his office. No warning, no script. She laid out the files, the links, the proof. She asked him what he actually knew about the woman living in his condo. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't deny. He just sat back in his chair. When Keisha finished, he said, "That was a long time ago." She asked if he'd seen the most recent uploads. He hadn't. The argument lasted an hour, maybe more. Lauren arrived halfway through and left 5 minutes later. She said later it felt like trying to hold up a house mid-collapse. By the end of that week, Keisha had moved out of the family group chat. Lauren stopped answering Zara's texts. Their uncle, Marcus's brother, postponed a business meeting indefinitely. Zara never acknowledged the confrontation directly, but 4 days later, a new wedding vendor reached out to Marcus's assistant. A boutique venue in Northern California had received a $20,000 deposit under his name. The date reserved? August 10th. The wedding took place on April 6th. A quiet ceremony at Marcus's lakeside cabin. Just 12 guests. No daughters. Marcus said it was for privacy. Said he didn't want a spectacle. Zara told her followers she wanted something intimate, sacred, and unplugged. The only photographer present was one she hired herself. A close friend, she said. No one knew his real name. 2 days after the wedding, Zara moved into the penthouse. She posted a video tour, captioned "Our Nest, Our Rules." Her voice guided viewers through walk-in closets, imported marble, and custom fixtures. The video reached 42,000 views in under 48 hours. She began filming more regularly, outfits, breakfast routines, handwritten notes Marcus left on her vanity. She never showed his face. She referred to him as M. The comments filled with admiration. Some recognized the home. Others claimed to have dated him before. Marcus didn't object. He'd started canceling meetings, leaving the office early. His longtime assistant, Julia, noted changes in his calendar. Blocks of time with no entries, missing receipts, password resets. When she asked about the changes, he told her to take a week off. On April 14th, Marcus added Zara to 3 of his corporate accounts. He also added her as an authorized user on 2 insurance policies. One of them included a $3.5 million payout in the event of accidental death. Zara signed the paperwork in his study. She used her legal name, Zara Lynn Dupree, but her signature didn't match previous documents. Marcus didn't notice, or didn't care. In mid-May, Zara introduced a new person into their routine, Damien. She called him her best friend and business manager. Told Marcus they met during a gallery internship in New York, that he helped with creative strategy, branding, and outreach. She described him as family. Damien was warm, helpful, made espresso the way Marcus liked it. He dressed well, spoke with ease, carried an expensive camera bag, but never seemed to take any photos. When asked, he said he was between projects. He also moved fast. He began taking calls on the balcony, scheduling meetings using Marcus's private study, booking Zara into events that hadn't been vetted by her PR team. Lauren saw him at a downtown restaurant on May 27th, arm around a woman who definitely wasn't Zara. She sent the photo to Keisha. Keisha sent it to Julia. Julia didn't reply. By June 1st, Damien was managing 3 LLCs tied to Zara's online brand. One of those LLCs was listed as a vendor under Marcus's main holdings. It had received 2 payments, one for consulting, one for creative services. Both cleared within 48 hours. Neither had backup documentation. And still, Marcus said nothing. At a board meeting that month, he missed 2 motions, forgot one of the quarterly numbers, and adjourned early. A junior partner described him as distracted, but convinced everything was fine. Meanwhile, Zara uploaded a video titled, "Manifesting the Life You Deserve." She wore white. In the background, a document was briefly visible on her desk. It was addressed to Marcus's estate attorney. By the second week of May, Damien had access to Marcus's personal information, social security number, birth certificate scan, passport photo. He used them to open 3 cryptocurrency wallets. The wallets were linked to overseas exchanges and routed through VPN-protected nodes. The initial deposits, small, under $5,000, came from Marcus's own business accounts, labeled as R/&D investments. By the end of the month, over $120 had moved through the wallets. No alerts were triggered. The amounts were just below internal audit thresholds. The transfers were staggered, often processed after midnight. At the same time, Damien opened 2 new credit lines under the umbrella of Langston Strategic Holdings. The listed purpose: expansion into emerging media platforms. One vendor invoice described a media acquisition. Another was for interactive content infrastructure. Neither matched any known project within the company. Julia, still on leave, would later confirm the applications didn't pass through legal review. The authorization signatures, scanned PDFs, were traced back to Zara's MacBook. Meanwhile, Zara's content had shifted tone. She no longer framed her posts as aspiring. She was now established. Private jets, spa weekends, diamond-studded ankle bracelets. Most videos included brand shoutouts, often tagged with affiliate links and product codes. Her subscriber count tripled between May 10th and May 30th. Her top-tier OnlyFans package, $79.99 per month, offered behind-the-scenes footage of creative life, luxury, and love. Comments praised the aesthetic, the mystery, the consistency. No one questioned how the upgrades came so fast. A separate account, launched under a different name, provided higher-priced content. It included Q&As, travel vlogs, and anonymous voiceovers referring to the man who made it all possible. Marcus was never named. According to site analytics obtained later in the investigation, the account earned over $218,000 in subscriber revenue during May alone. None of it was declared, and none of it came from Zara's own funding. By the 1st of June, at least 6 corporate transactions tied to Marcus's accounts had been redirected to vendors controlled by Damien and Zara. The amounts were modest. The timing was exact, and Marcus, once known for never missing a detail, hadn't noticed a thing. It was June 3rd when Alonzo Mitchell, Marcus's longtime business accountant, flagged 3 wire transfers he couldn't trace. 2 were labeled as vendor payments. One was for content licensing, a term Marcus had never used in any of his ventures. The amounts weren't large enough to trigger external audits, but they weren't random either. Each transaction rounded off at precise, even figures. Mitchell made a note to raise the concern directly with Marcus at their quarterly review. That meeting never happened. On June 6th, Keisha received notification through a financial monitoring app she'd quietly attached to her father's accounts back in February. The alert mentioned unusual crypto wallet activity. At first, she assumed it was spam. Then she saw the IP logs. Transactions were originating from Marcus's own home network, specifically from a device listed as Zara MVP. She took screenshots, downloaded the statements, then called her sister Jasmine. That same day, Zara posted a new photo set to her premium followers, 13 professionally edited images taken inside a luxury yacht cabin. The tags included designer brands not sold domestically, a rare handbag, a custom watch. The caption read, "Private, powerful, protected." Her followers were obsessed. Comments surged into the thousands. No one questioned the setting, but by the second week of June, someone did. An anonymous email landed in Jasmine's university inbox. No subject line, no signature, just one sentence: "Your stepmom is Diamond Doll." Attached was a screenshot. Zara, undeniably her, posed in a velvet robe, face partially hidden. The username was blurred, but the profile tagline was visible. High gloss, no secrets, just luxury and control. Jasmine didn't respond. She forwarded the message to Keisha, who didn't hesitate. She hired the same private investigator from earlier in the year, Frank Delgado. She asked for confirmation. Delgado replied within 72 hours. The answer was yes. Zara Langston, the woman who married their father in a private lakeside ceremony just weeks earlier, had over 38,000 paying subscribers under the alias Diamond Doll. Multiple facial recognition tools had matched her across 3 platforms. The content ranged from exclusive travel shoots to high-priced live streams, all filmed from locations connected to Marcus's properties. Back at the office, Alonzo Mitchell's concerns were growing. The crypto trail wasn't clean. The vendor invoices weren't matching purchase orders, and new company cards had been issued, cards Marcus had never signed off on. One was used at a boutique resort in Turks and Caicos. Another was charged at a luxury lingerie showroom in Berlin. The amounts weren't adding up, and Marcus still hadn't said a word. It was July 2nd when Marcus opened the iPad. He'd only meant to check the week's shipping manifests, but the screen was still logged into Safari. A push notification blinked across the top. Diamond Doll. New tips received. /$2, 100. It was the first time Marcus had seen the name. He tapped it by instinct. The screen loaded slowly. By the time he understood what he was looking at, the video had already started playing. The setting was familiar, the marble shower from their penthouse, and the voice was unmistakably Zara's. She walked into the room 10 minutes later and froze. He didn't say a word at first, just held up the device and watched her face. Her expression didn't change. Not shock, not panic, something steadier, practiced. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "I was going to tell you," she said. Marcus didn't believe her. He said so. She moved closer, dropped to the couch across from him. No makeup, no jewelry, just a robe. She began to cry, then talk. A string of explanations that moved faster than his questions could keep up with. She said it started before they met, said it was artistic, said it had meaning. And then, finally, she said the one thing that made him pause. "I'm building something. For us. For the future. I just didn't know how to stop once it started making real money." He stared at her. She wiped her face and leaned in. "I did this because I wanted to bring something of my own to the table. Not just live off you. Build with you." It wasn't an answer, but it was familiar. He'd used that same phrase in his early speeches. Build with me, not beneath me. It was his philosophy, his identity, and now it echoed back at him from someone who, just weeks ago, he'd thought was the answer to his loneliness. He didn't respond that night. He didn't sleep, either. The next morning, Zara made breakfast, kissed his cheek, acted as if nothing had happened. She wore a soft lavender dress and asked him to approve a mock-up for a charity gala she claimed to be co-hosting. It was scheduled for August. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he nodded slowly, then asked to see the budget. She hesitated, just for a second, then smiled and said she'd email it. She never did, and Marcus didn't ask again. Not yet, but he did change the passwords on 2 of his business accounts that evening. Quietly, alone. He told himself it was just a precaution, but even he didn't believe that. By August, the calls started coming in. Not personal ones. These were from project managers, site leads, vendors. Payment delays, wire transfers in transit, material suppliers pulling out. At first, Marcus assumed it was a bank glitch, then a system delay. But within days, it was clear. Something was wrong with the books. The cash flow from his construction company, once reliable, predictable, wasn't flowing. It was bleeding. A contract with the city of Minneapolis was the first at risk. $12 million municipal housing project, scheduled to break ground in September. Then the private equity-backed condo build in Uptown. Suddenly, financing clauses were being re-examined. Vendors demanded advance payments. The CFO of one of his satellite companies flagged an irregular credit account, opened in Marcus's name, but not by Marcus. He called his accountant, sat down in the office with a fresh legal pad. Line by line, they traced transactions. Digital wallets, luxury purchases, wire transfers to shell LLCs. Several of the accounts pointed back to a crypto exchange registered in the British Virgin Islands. The final number took 3 days to calculate. 4.2 million. Gone. It wasn't stolen in one swoop. It was a leak, slow, quiet, systematic. It had started in early May, escalated by June. By August, it was visible from every corner of the business. Marcus stared at the report for an hour, said nothing. Keisha was less quiet. She'd already hired a lawyer. She had her own forensic accountant. Jasmine followed shortly after. They were no longer just concerned daughters. They were stakeholders. Their inheritance, their reputations, their professional credibility, all of it now at risk. They issued a formal letter, demanded Marcus freeze accounts. Remove Zara from all positions of financial authority. Their language was clear. If he didn't act, they would. Legal action was on the table. Marcus didn't respond right away. He couldn't. He wasn't ready to say her name out loud. Not in that context. Not in front of his daughters. But 2 days later, he did something he hadn't done in 6 years. He called his former business partner, a man he hadn't spoken to since their falling out in 2018. They met at a quiet cafe just outside the city. Marcus didn't tell him everything. Not yet. But he asked one question. If I needed to dissolve something, quietly, what would it take? The man looked at him for a long time, then asked, "Is it legal, or is it personal?" Marcus didn't answer, because, by then, even he wasn't sure anymore. August 20th, 2024. Marcus was no longer quiet. He'd gathered every file, every account statement, email log, crypto ledger. He laid them across the marble kitchen island and waited for her to walk in. When Zara returned from her spa appointment, she found him standing there with 2 words. "We're done." There was no emotion in his voice, only a decision. He told her he was filing for divorce, that criminal charges were being explored, that her name had already been handed to an attorney who specialized in financial crimes. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He only explained, calmly, completely, that the game was over. Zara tried to speak, but nothing came out. Not right away. She wasn't ready for this part. Within an hour, Damien was in the penthouse. He didn't knock. He didn't even wait for her to finish explaining before cutting in. "He's going to destroy us both." The charm was gone. The cool, tech startup mask had dropped. What remained was pressure, panic. The accounts they created weren't just linked to Marcus. They were traceable. The shell companies weren't as clean as they thought. A subpoena to the exchanges would pull everything into the light. Damien had already gotten a call from someone he didn't expect. A former partner from Atlanta who'd seen the OnlyFans content. Recognized him. Asked too many questions. Zara sat in the dark of the guest room, phone in hand, staring at the name she used online. Diamond Doll. It had once made her feel in control. Now it felt like evidence. The scheme, the whole plan, was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to buy freedom. A house in the Caribbean. Quiet retirement. Now, it was unraveling by the hour. Damien paced the hallway, listing their options. Fake accounts. Quick sale of the crypto. One last transfer. High risk, fast payout. Then, the words she hadn't heard from him before. "If he goes to the cops, we don't get a second chance. We have to decide now. Either we lose everything, or we make it go away." Zara didn't respond, but the silence wasn't indecision. It was something else entirely. August 25th, 2024. Marcus was found dead at his lakeside cabin in Brainerd, Minnesota. The weekend had been planned as a reconciliation trip. Zara booked it herself. Just the 2 of them, no assistants, no driver. A quiet place they had only visited once before. She told mutual friends it was time to reset, to clear the air after months of tension. The 911 call came at 6:43 a.m. Zara's voice was shaky but coherent. She told the dispatcher Marcus had woken up complaining of chest pain. He collapsed in the kitchen while making coffee. She tried CPR. Paramedics arrived 19 minutes later. Marcus was pronounced dead at the scene. The report listed it as a probable heart attack. No signs of forced entry. No bruises. No defensive wounds. No apparent trauma. Just a 54-year-old man with a history of stress, a failing business, and, according to his wife, recent chest discomfort. Zara told police he'd been overwhelmed with financial pressure. He hadn't been sleeping. Had barely eaten in the last 2 days. She said he was carrying the weight of the entire company on his back. That she had begged him to see a doctor. He refused. The initial medical examiner's summary seemed to support her version. Family members were notified by early afternoon. Jasmine didn't answer the call. Keisha hung up the first time. By nightfall, Zara was already back in the penthouse. Neighbors saw her return alone, escorted by Damien. She told them she just needed rest. No one knew she had already contacted the insurance firm hours before the autopsy was finalized. The same firm Marcus had updated in April to name her as sole beneficiary. The payout? $7.5 million. When asked why she moved so quickly, Zara said she needed funds to secure the business Marcus left behind. She didn't mention the cryptocurrency transfers already in motion, or the offshore accounts Damien had finalized just days earlier. And no one, not even the daughters, questioned how a man with no known medical condition could die so suddenly in the presence of someone who never left his side. Not yet. In early September, the official cause of death remained unchanged. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner ruled it as natural causes, acute myocardial infarction. The report was clean. No toxicology anomalies. No injuries. Just a man who, by all appearances, died during a weekend getaway. But Keisha wasn't satisfied. Neither was Jasmine. Together, they petitioned for an independent autopsy. They also hired a forensic accountant, using the last reserves of their father's discretionary trust. What they found wasn't grief, it was confusion. Then alarm. Buried inside layers of encrypted digital accounts were crypto wallets registered under Marcus's name, active wallets, with transactions that didn't match his habits or timeline. Thousands of dollars moved in and out, daily, mostly around late spring and early summer. The forensic trail led them to usernames. The usernames led them to subscriptions. And the subscriptions led them to Diamond Doll. Zara's OnlyFans profile, hidden behind layers of branding and pseudonyms, was traced directly back to a business account funded by Marcus's LLC. But that wasn't the end of it. Damien, her so-called gay best friend, wasn't who he claimed to be. His real name was not Damien. He had 2 prior convictions in Georgia, wire fraud and identity theft. A warrant in Texas, under another alias. No record of employment, no business registration, no public digital footprint beyond burner accounts and encrypted messaging apps. When investigators subpoenaed phone records, they discovered a pattern. Daily calls between Zara and Damien, late-night video exchanges, secure transfers between devices, many during the week of Marcus's death. Still, legally, there was nothing conclusive, and Zara was already moving fast. She inherited everything. The penthouse, the lakeside property, the company's remaining assets, all 3 luxury vehicles. Within 2 weeks, she'd listed 2 of the homes and wired $1.2 million transfer to a brokerage account in Dubai. She told the probate attorney she was downsizing. And as far as the law was concerned, she was free to do it, unless something new came to light. By October, the tone of the investigation had shifted, quietly but decisively. The daughter's private team, now working in tandem with state investigators, obtained cooperation from a blockchain analysis firm. Within days, the anonymous wallets were traced, not just to Damien, but to a series of exchanges tied to burner email accounts he had used before. The money moved through smaller exchanges, converted to privacy coins, then split into offshore ledgers. Still, it wasn't just the money that told the story. Through a subpoena to OnlyFans, direct message logs were recovered. Dozens of subscribers had received personalized videos from Zara, some flirtatious, some extravagant. In one clip, dated June 12th, she toasted champagne to her golden goose, calling Marcus her forever sugar daddy. She laughed when a fan asked if he knew about the account. Not a clue. She typed back, "He just signs checks." That wasn't all. Security footage from the lakeside neighborhood, collected by a neighbor's wildlife camera, showed Damien's rental car parked on a back road near the cabin. The timestamp was August 24th, 7:43 p.m. He had never been invited. He had no reason to be there. Marcus was found dead the next morning. Then came the toxicology re-examination. The independent pathologist had pushed for broader screening. One compound stood out, digoxin, derived from foxglove, a naturally occurring cardiac glycoside, lethal in concentrated doses, nearly undetectable after decomposition unless specifically tested for. And there were foxglove plants in the flower beds near the cabin, planted weeks earlier. Records from a gardening app linked to Zara's phone showed a post from late June, experimenting with natural herbs for my next wellness shoot. The evidence was no longer circumstantial. Now it was chemical, digital, visual. Each trail pointed in the same direction. But whether it would be enough for an arrest was still unclear. On the morning of November 3rd, Zara arrived at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport with 2 designer suitcases and a one-way ticket to Dubai. She never made it past security. Agents from Homeland Security and local police intercepted her at the gate. She did not resist. She asked only one question: "Who tipped you off?" Hours later, Damien was taken into custody at a co-working space in St. Paul, seated behind a laptop logged into a VPN. The screen showed an attempt to bypass multi-factor authentication on one of Marcus's remaining crypto wallets. Investigators had been monitoring the login in real time. They had waited for him to touch the account. Now they had him. Back at Zara's penthouse, the search warrant turned up more than expected. In the corner of a minimalist balcony setup meant for garden photography, officers found several pots arranged beneath a sun lamp, each labeled with botanical tags. Among them, Digitalis purpurea, foxglove. The plants were fresh, still thriving. Toxic levels of digoxin confirmed by lab testing. But the final blow came from Zara's own digital footprint. She had used a secure messaging app with auto-delete features. But one backup remained, buried in her cloud storage, mislabeled under a photography folder. Inside were messages exchanged between her and Damien, dated August 19th through 23rd. References to Marcus's exit window. Discussion of dosage. Questions about how long symptoms would take to appear. One voice note from Zara ended with the words, "Once this is done, I want it all in my name. Every last penny. No mistakes." There were no more explanations left to give. No more tears to summon. The arrests were just the beginning. What followed would stretch far beyond 2 mugshots. And the trial had yet to begin. And just like that, the picture-perfect facade shattered, exposing the truth beneath luxury, lust, and lies. Marcus's legacy, built over decades, nearly lost in a matter of months. Zara and Damien now face charges, including conspiracy to commit murder, financial fraud, and unlawful distribution of controlled substances. The trial is expected to draw national attention. The daughters, they're fighting not just for justice, but to rebuild the name their father once stood on. If this story held your attention, if you found yourself leaning in, questioning every move, every motive, then don't leave just yet. Hit the like button if you think Marcus deserved better. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life thrillers, betrayals, and investigations just like this. And drop a comment. What do you think pushed Zara over the edge? Was it greed, desperation, or something even deeper? Share this video if it gave you chills, and check out the end screen now for more jaw-dropping stories you won't believe are true. Because sometimes, the most dangerous enemies are already inside the house.